If an input needs aim assist to compete, it's not as good, clearly. But games are meant to be fun. So if you want to come back from school or work and just play some games on the couch, why not have aim assist? That's fair. But if the best players in the game are switching to the worst input, then something is clearly wrong. And that's why we're here. After seeing all the debate and getting one-magged by people on controllers, I started thinking about how to actually handle this. Like if I was a game dev, it seems both sides right now want the other to shut up or go away. But that's not good for the health of the game or the community. It's better to have more players, not fewer. So mouse players want aim assist to be removed or reduced. Controller players want the mouse players to deal with it, or if it's really that much better, then switch. Because the fact is, mouse and keyboard have so many advantages just being the better input method. Yeah, good jokes about mouse and keyboard being used for spreadsheets, but unless you're playing something like VR, fighting or racing games, mouse and keyboard are the best, especially for first-person shooters. So who is right, controller or mouse? I think we're missing some things from the debate because, and this may be surprising, but the answer may not be to nerf aim assist, but to remove the nerfs on mouse and keyboard. I'll explain that later. First, let's get some extra perspective from BulletL, an Australian Apex Pro, movement god, and all-around great guy. So Bullet, how strong is aim assist?
It is relatively strong, but at the same time, it's also relatively situational. When you're comparing like aim assist in a competitive pro setting, I think at the highest level at LAN, basically, I would say mouse and keyboard's probably better, but for all other aspects of the game, ranked, standard games, everything else, I'd definitely say like aim assist takes the cake.
And why is that?
Just the overall consistency that you have, like the strength of just having full confidence that you peek a corner, your aim's always going to be on point and you're going to hit your shots, like as long as you're a pretty decent player, that is.
Okay, so there are upsides and downsides. If you get good enough on mouse and keyboard, you're probably not too concerned with controller players. But I think this is part of why pros are switching. It's just a nicer experience to play the game on controller, without all the nerfs and annoying visual elements that ruin your aim on mouse and keyboard. So again, hearing from Bullet, how does the visual clutter get in the way of mouse and keyboard?
Obviously this is, again, situational, but certain aspects of the game where you'll have like muzzle flash and where your line of sight is hindered by visual aspects of the game, it's difficult to track your opponents, and because of that, if you can't see what you're shooting at, it's pretty hard to track accurately and efficiently. When you have aim assist, the certain parts of the tracking pull for you, so you can get a rough idea of where you need to be aiming without actually being able to see them as clearly as you would.
Right, so when we're talking about thermite grenades, fire from Fuse's ult, snow, the muzzle flash as you mentioned, horizon ults and Qs, all these are adding those visual effects and clutter to your screen, so you're getting limited information for your aim to track, but the controller doesn't need that much information because it'll track for you, and you just need to see like a slideshow and you'll be fine. As long as you know the general vicinity of where they are, it'll aim for you.
Yeah, I mean, it obviously it won't aim for you, but it'll start pulling and giving, like, it'll basically kind of like tell you, hey, like this guy's moving to your left. If you can't see him, like it's giving you like small adjustments to help you figure out like where he's going. And that situation like basically applies through everything except through windows and through bang smoke. But I believe through Gibby ults and every other like bit of ultimate and everything else in the game, like I'm pretty sure it just automatically just pulls through.
And that's why people are starting to use Bangalore more? The smokes actually counter that?
Yeah, counter like the aim assist, and it kind of makes it an even playing field.
Unless you have digis. Does the aim assist work with the digi?
No, it doesn't.
Interesting. So that's where mouse and keyboard players actually have the advantage.
Yeah, it's a flat, even ground. Obviously, like once you leave the smoke, it changes. But for the most part, while you're in a smoke, like it's an even playing field for sure.
Yeah, but because it's an even playing field, mouse and keyboard has the advantage because they can actually aim properly. And we spoke about the fact that not having to worry about your aim so much, it actually frees up brain power. You mentioned Imperial Hal switching to controller and actually winning a tournament. He's known as one of the best in-game leaders. So what's the story there? Do you think he would have won on mouse and keyboard too? Or was not having to worry about aim so much actually giving him enough of an advantage to focus more on leading?
I mean, I'd say it obviously had a very big impact. Without a doubt, he's an incredible player, and he had success previously when it was mainly a predominantly mouse and keyboard playing field. But obviously, like, the landscape's changed, and now I guess to fill the role that he wants to fill, which is, you know, to do a solid amount of fragging and also leading his team, playing on controller was just the right decision for him. As you can see, it's led to an extreme amount of success. Like he won the first LAN that he like switched to it on. So it obviously worked out really well for him.
Yeah, which is just incredible to think about. Did he have much experience before that on controller, or was that a new thing for him?
He had a little bit, and in the lead up to that event, he had been playing on and off for like the past, like, I don't know, maybe 6-7 months. He was probably trying to work towards being able to play on controller, but it obviously took some time for him to learn slowly while also still playing on mouse and key, because he didn't want to just, go from being so confident on one input to just like, relearning half the stuff and being like a detriment to his team.
And that's another point. You can't just have anyone jump on controller and play really well. It still takes a lot of practice. I think it's really unfair to call a controller player skillless. They're clearly very good at what they do, and not everyone's going to be able to do it. So I do respect how hard it is to play on controller, but the aim assist, through all the clutter and less nerfs, does seem to be giving controller players the advantage in fights, which could be said is the most important part of the game, really. It's a first-person shooter. And Bullet, you mentioned the reaction time factor. Just explain that a bit.
So with controller, when you're aiming from left to right, you need to take your like joystick from one side to the other side. It has to cross that center mass, I guess. Whereas on mouse and keyboard, you just like move your mouse like left if you want it to go left, or you move it right if you want it to go right, and it changes like exactly where it is. Whereas like using a controller, you have to use like a thumbstick, and it has to cross like certain sides of the, I guess, like the joystick. And in order to compensate for that physics of the controller, you have rotational aim assist, which basically automatically starts pulling to one side when your, like, I guess your enemy moves a certain direction, and it happens instantly. There is no reaction time at all. So where visually you'd need to process a player moving and then react to it, the aim assist is already pulling in that direction, and then by the time you move your thumbstick there, you're already on target anyway. So basically on mouse and key, you see where the player's moving, then you react to it. 200 milliseconds is the average reaction time. You're moving your mouse there, and it's just like more steps you got to do.
Okay, I didn't know that. That actually makes a lot of sense. What about movement? So all the fancy like super glides and what's it called? Tap strafes. So
yeah, tap strafe.
All the super glides and tap strafes, does that factor in at all, or is movement not an issue at that point?
I mean, most people at that level have extremely good aim, so even if you have the best movement, it's only going to do so much and get you so far. I'd say movement comes in to keep you alive in certain situations, but obviously, like, you could have the best movement in the world, but at the end of the day, you need to do damage, otherwise your team's going to fall over. Can't outrun bullets,
Yeah, right. It's still the aim assist factor. Like, it's becoming so strong for these guys that are so good on these inputs that they are switching over a mouse, which is made for aim, essentially.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So that is the question, just is aim assist too strong?
I mean, it's hard to say. It's impossible to put them head to head against each other, because to be honest, they're not supposed to be competing against each other. Like, they definitely weren't created to be competing against each other, and I guess that's why they're separated by platform. But yeah, I mean, the landscape's changing, so you either adapt or you get left behind, I guess.
That's true. So what is the solution?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Everyone wants to be having fun. Everyone wants a game that they can play, and everyone wants the game to be successful too. So yeah, I mean, it's tough. I think the main thing is like, if they just need to maybe look at fine-tuning rotational aim assist, having something react for you and not having to rely on your own reaction time is kind of wild. Like, I think that's where it definitely needs some fine-tuning to put it in line with mouse and keyboard. And I'm sure like almost all mouse and keyboard players would be happy to take like a movement nerf if it meant, being able to play on a more level aiming field, which kind of, makes things more even, I suppose.
Okay, so any closing thoughts on the debate?
I mean, I think it's obviously very situational. At the end of the day, I think it doesn't really make too much sense to have both inputs playing against each other when they're so vastly different. I think that's like the bottom line. It's obviously unfair in a lot of situations, but I think we're pretty close to getting a bit more of an even playing field. And yeah, I guess like that's kind of like my opinion or my take on it.
So you're not too bothered at the moment?
I mean, it could be balanced a little bit better, but it is what it is, so either adapt or get left behind.
Yeah, fair enough. So we're going to see you on controllers soon?
I doubt it. I'm just going to keep pushing myself on mouse and keyboard and hope for the best.
I'm with you on that one. Alright, and if people want to follow you and see your progress in the pro scene, where can they go?
I stream on Twitch. I have a YouTube channel. All of my socials are BulletL, so yeah.
Okay, I'll leave those links in the description. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll chat to you again another time.
Sounds good, man. Appreciate you for having me.
Okay, so a key takeaway there is something I would say too. We're actually not that far off the balance mark. I'm rarely bothered by controller players. That said, there are some situations that I think controllers just easily win most of the time, especially when there's visual clutter, and of course if the player is good enough. And this is where I want to talk about the nerfs to mouse and keyboard more, because if I show you Quake, it's way more pure. Check out the recoil on the guns. Notice the screen isn't shaking? It's just the gun shaking, so it's not hindering your aim. Contrast that with Apex Legends, and look at this. The whole screen is shaking, and on mouse, you actually have to learn the recoil patterns. Yeah, I know there are tricks to lower that, like jitter aiming and strafe smoothing and whatever, but that's just extremely poor game design and more of a bug. Basically, the movement in Apex is so slow, unlike Quake, that to make it harder to hit, they had to put a bunch of recoil and other nerfs to make it more competitive. Controller bypasses a lot of that. It seems to be a much smoother experience on controller. Still jittery, but at least it doesn't affect your aim as much. Honestly, Apex rattles my brain. Like, I love the underlying game. As I said in my review, there's a lot of positives. But after a while, I just need a break. Having to sit through watching all these flashing lights with the jerky random camera movement, things getting in my vision like the Peacekeeper. I'm like, just let me aim. To relax, I have to jump into a game of Quake. Who thought Quake was relaxing? It's way faster, but it's so much nicer to play. It's smooth and clear, it's beautiful, and I still find it fun. But the Apex gameplay is more interesting because it's so detailed. It's just all the nerfs to mouse aim that really kills it. I would never test a mouse in Apex for aim. The only thing I'm testing in Apex is the scroll wheel. The rest is just highlights for the fun of it, something different. Otherwise, all my testing is done in Quake, because it's the only game I've found that's really good for testing mice. If Apex actually allowed us to aim properly, then maybe it would be a good test. There's too much random factor in it though. I'd rather just keep Apex as a fun game. But anyway, I also want to show you just how much your camera is moving, as in your point of view. So I put a crosshair on the monitor and filmed that. Now watch how much the crosshair in-game moves. So look at the center point, and then look at where the crosshair in the game is. The monitor crosshair is not moving from the center. And that's a bigger nerf on mouse than controller. Controller will pull toward the enemy, so it doesn't matter as much. But look at it, there are so many movements you have to counter or just ignore, because the crosshair isn't actually where it should be. And this is what it looks like when you drop from height in Quake. And here's what it looks like in Apex. Now side by side. And Apex does this all the time. If you have an heirloom, it's even worse off the drop. If you hot drop with Valks, it actually makes it pay to lose, or get lucky to lose. I've also noticed just how much rage, toxicity and unhappy people there are in Apex. Little things in games start to feel much bigger than they are, because I think subconsciously, anyone who plays this a lot is being pushed to their limits. Not in terms of gameplay, although that's hard too, but in tolerance. The amount of aggravating features in Apex, all the nerfs, all the horrible screen shakes, flashes, jerkiness, unexpected movement, what's it actually doing to our brains as we try really hard to play properly, with all of this going on? I've played over 2,000 hours now in a year and a half, and I think I'm at the end of my patience. The only way I can play this game is using single shot weapons with lower recoil. Maybe I'm alone in that, but just pay attention to how you're feeling after playing Apex. The game is great, don't get me wrong. I think it's all these little things that I'm mentioning that are adding to the lower tolerance, impatience, and aggravation. If you've learned the recoil patterns or play on controller, this probably doesn't affect you as much. But I think a fair few people would be getting agitated by how the game is designed, and not even realizing it. Plus all the bugs and issues. I've had the no footstep thing a fair few times now. Yeah, it's frustrating. Add that to all the other stuff I'm talking about, it's not really a pleasant experience. Especially if you solo queue. So my closing thought is this. Aim assist isn't actually the real issue here. Controllers need help. They're extremely limited compared to mouse and keyboard. And if you don't believe that, try rocket jump like this on a controller. It may look easy, but I'm using precise angles to rocket jump through all these doorways. It looks smooth and simple, but it's years and years of experience. You just cannot get that sort of accuracy on controller. So I firmly believe they need assistance. And to keep the player base strong and healthy, I'd rather keep controller players happy. The main problem I see, and what I'd like to see changed, is all the nerfs to mouse and keyboard. They need to address the visual clutter and forced camera movement, which affect mouse more than controller. If Apex Legends can address those nerfs, and I say nerfs because they're making it harder to play on those inputs, then I don't think aim assist will bother people as much. Lower the recoil, lower the visual clutter, lower the camera movement, keep aim assist on controllers, and then we'll probably have a pretty even playing field. I think people will rage less. In-game leaders will be able to focus more without so many distractions to their play, and Apex will be better. That's my opinion as a wannabe game designer, and also as someone who has gamed since these were the best consoles on the market. Yeah, I'm old with a lot of experience. That's my addition to the debate anyway. But it is a debate, so jump in with your opinion. What do you think of aim assist on controllers? Or different input methods playing against one another? Should it be different in the pro scene versus casual? What about ranked versus casual? And what about the nerfs to mouse and keyboard like I've talked about? Leave your thoughts below. Big thanks to BulletL for his input. And this video is brought to you by the Razer Wolverine V2 Pro. They were kind enough to send one out to me, so I could test a controller in Apex. Sub, like and share. Catch ya.